Hello everyone. Today we are going to talk about Wrist Research and Religion, Muslims in Britain from our book Lift Off. We are going to start with completing paragraphs from A to E with the correct phrases from the box. So we have the phrases are who came here, who traveled to, who became, where Yemenis lived, who live in, where they found, who was and where Muslims can study, where I live, who have been. So I'm going to read, then you can answer. Islam in Britain today. In my research, I discovered there are about 1.5 million Muslims who live in Britain today. The story of Islam here begins about 500 years ago. There is a record of a British man, John Nelson, who became a Muslim at that time. During the 18th century, other British people who traveled to the Islamic world converted to Islam. For example, Edward Montagu, who was the son of a British ambassador to Turkey. The first large group of Muslims in Britain were sailors from India who came here about 300 years ago. The next group were sailors from Yemen. The first mosque in Britain was in Cardiff, a port city where Yemenis lived. Many Muslims arrived in Britain in the 1960s. They came from India or Pakistan. They came to towns in the north of England like Leeds and Bradford, where they found jobs in factories. There are now Muslims who have been in Britain for 50 or 60 years and many more who were born here. In Blackburn, the town where I live, 20% of the population is Muslim. There are two Islamic secondary schools, one for boys and one for girls, where Muslim students can study. So, the answers are number 2, who became, 3, who traveled to, 4, who was, 5, who came here, 6, where Yemenis lived, 7, where they found, 8, who have been, 9, where I live, and 10, where Muslim students can study. So the new vocabulary we have ambassador. It's an accredited diplomat sent by a state as its permanent representative in a foreign country. Convert, change the form of something, like changing from one religion to another. Factory, a building or group of buildings where goods are manufactured by machine. Now I'm going to read and remember these 3 points. Number 1, look at this sentence. Many Muslims who arrived in Britain came from India or Pakistan. The words who arrived in Britain are an example of a relative clause. So we have a relative clause here, who arrived in Britain. Number 2, this relative clause in 1 begins with the word who. We can also begin relative clause with other words such as which and where. So either to use who or which or where. 3, relative clauses add more information and describe other parts of the sentences. For example, who arrived in Britain describes many Muslims. So it's describing many people. Now let's join sentences using who, where, and write them in your notebook. For example, number 2, I know a British man. He converted to Islam last year. So instead of making 2 sentences, we can make it 1. I know a British man who converted to Islam last year. Number 3, that is the electrical factory where I used to work. So we are talking here about a place, so we are using where, not who. That man who is wearing a black jacket is my old teacher. So here we started with that man who, because we are talking about a person, so we are using who, is wearing a black jacket is my old teacher. 5, this is an excellent restaurant where they cook good Indian food. So here we have a place. Number 6, what is the name of the place where you are going on holiday next year? So again, we are talking about a place, so we are using the word where. Now I want you to number Sarah's pictures in the order of your hear them, okay? So I'm going to read and I want you to just number the pictures according to the reading from 1 to 6. So, number 1, this is the butcher's where my dad works. Number 2, the woman on the right who is sitting is my mother. Number 3, this is the mosque where my dad prays on Friday. Number 4, this photo shows pilgrims who are going on the Hajj. 5, this is the picture of my brother who is studying maths at university. Number 6, this is the school where my sister and I used to study. So the answers are A is number 5, B 2, C 6, D 3, E 1, and F is 4. Now I want you to say the sentences about the pictures. Number 2, the woman on the right who is sitting is Terma's mother. 3, this is the mosque where Term's dad prays on Friday. 4, this photo shows pilgrims who are going on the Hajj. 5, this is the picture of Term's brother who is studying maths at university. 6, this is the primary school where Term's sister and Term used to study. So, we are using here the relative clauses. So for today we learned about reading, relative clauses, describing pictures, and new vocabulary. Thank you for listening.